I opened my eyes with sand in my mouth, iron around my neck, and 200 nobles laughing like I was the entertainment before lunch. For 3 full seconds, I thought I was back in the wildlife genetics lab, half asleep over a population viability chart, because my brain was still clinging to the last thing I remembered. Fluorescent lights, an empty coffee cup, and a warning report about inherited disease in captive breeding programs. Then my left hand throbbed. I looked down. My palm was bleeding. Not badly, but enough to leave a dark smear across the pale arena sand. A broken chain dangled from the cracked collar around my throat. Above me, banners snapped in the wind, gold talons stitched on black silk. Beyond the white stone barrier, rows of noble spectators leaned forward with wine cups, silk fans, jeweled masks, and the kind of smiles people wear when someone else's life has become a public lesson. And then the memories hit me. Not my memories. Hers. Maelin Cor, 26 years old, licensed junior beast handler of the Golden Talon Beast Clan, orphan, debt-marked, disgraced, accused of ruining a royal Griffin bloodline worth 80,000 sun crowns. And apparently, scheduled to be fed to arena beasts before sunset. So yes, I had transmigrated. Not into a princess, not into a saintess, not into a duke's daughter with secret magic and 6 marriage candidates. No. I woke up as the scapegoat in a beast-taming execution arena, with a damaged collar around my neck and a noble heir smiling at me from the judge's platform like he had already picked the wine for my funeral. His name came from Maelin's memories before anyone said it. Lord Kaivar Drent, heir to the Golden Talon Beast Clan, darling of the royal stables, breeder of pure storm griffins, professional smirker, amateur fraud. He rose from his carved chair, all gold-trimmed robes and perfect hair, and lifted one gloved hand to silence the crowd. Maelin Cor, he called down, his voice carrying through a speaking crystal. You were trusted with the ash feather hatchling from our royal line. Under your negligent care, it failed 3 flight tests, rejected command resonance, and injured 2 handlers. That was interesting, because Maelin's memories showed me exactly what happened. She had not injured anyone. The Griffin had panicked because the handlers tried to force dominance, bind it through a pain collar. But sure, blame the orphan. Kaivar continued, enjoying the shape of every word. By clan law, a handler who corrupts a royal beast line may be stripped of license, rank, and bodily protection. The nobles murmured with pleasure. Bodily protection was a polite phrase. Fantasy worlds love polite phrases for terrible things. My right wrist trembled, not from fear exactly. The original Maelin's body was exhausted, dehydrated, and full of leftover panic. She had spent the previous night chained in a holding cell while clan elders yelled accusations at her through iron bars. Her mentor, Old Master Orvin, had died 6 months earlier, and without him, she had no patron, no family, no money, and no one willing to stand between her and Kaivar's reputation. Almost no one. A girl near the arena gate caught my eye. She wore a plain handler's coat 2 sizes too big, with curly brown hair tucked under a green scarf. Nessa Vale, 19, stable assistant, the only person who had brought Maelin water after the trial summons, the only one crying now. She shook her head slightly, like she was begging me not to speak. Unfortunately for everyone involved, I had spent my previous life telling people exactly what they did not want to hear. I was a geneticist. My specialty had been inherited disease, selective breeding, and population collapse in endangered animals. I had spent 11 years explaining to donors, zoo boards, and government panels that rare bloodline and healthy population were not the same thing. I had watched people with money destroy breeding programs because they wanted perfect markings, pure ancestry, and pretty marketing photos. And now I was in a world where noble clans did the same thing, except their animals breathed lightning. Kaivar gestured to the far gate. Chains rattled. A griffin stumbled into the arena. The nobles laughed harder. It was smaller than the proud, gold-feathered creatures painted on the banners. Its body was lean, its ash-gray feathers dull under the sun, its wing edges uneven. Its lion haunches shook with stress, and one taloned foreleg dragged slightly with each step. A collar of bronze command runes circled its neck. But the moment I saw its chest expand, I forgot the crowd. The rhythm was wrong. 3 shallow breaths, 1 deep catch, a pause before exhale. The feather mantle along its shoulders lifted in uneven waves, not from weakness but from pressure regulation. Stormlung. The term came from Maelin's memories as a myth, a legendary trait in ancient griffins that allowed them to fly through high-altitude lightning currents without mana rupture. The nobles saw an ugly failed beast. I saw a recessive trait expression hidden under stress, malnutrition, and bad handling. And because apparently transmigration comes with terrible timing and one useful miracle, the cracked bone whistle tied to my belt pulsed against my hip. Old Master Orvin's whistle. Maelin had carried it for years. Everyone said it was useless. It made barely any sound. The original Maelin had never understood why her mentor told her to keep it. I touched it. The arena noise faded. The griffin's breathing sharpened into patterns. Not words, not thoughts, not some cute magical animal friendship song. Data. Stress markers, pulse intervals, resonance friction, bloodline conflict, pain response. A thin, trembling pattern inside the creature's call, like a graph turning into sound. I nearly laughed. Of all the ridiculous hidden abilities I could have gotten, I received a magic whistle that turned animal distress into diagnostic information. Honestly, that was the most believable thing that had happened so far. Kaivar leaned forward. Do you have any final defense? He expected begging, crying, maybe an apology. The original Maelin had been quiet, obedient, desperate to keep her license because it was the only thing paying her debt to the clan. I stood slowly. The broken chain dragged through the sand. My knees almost buckled, which ruined the dramatic effect a little, but I stayed upright. I would like to examine the ash-feather griffin, I said. The crowd went quiet. Kaivar blinked once. You wish to examine the beast you ruined? Yes. A few nobles laughed again, but softer now. One of the clan elders, a heavy man with silver rings on every finger, sneered from the platform. Elder Voss. Maelin's memories supplied his face with a cold rush of dread. He had signed the false incident report. Denied, he said. Your license is under revocation. Under revocation, I repeated, not revoked. The arena went still in that lovely way crowds do, and they smell a technicality. Kaivar's smile thinned. I looked up at the judge's dais. Golden Talon Handler Code, Section 12. Any accused handler may request a final condition examination before sentence if the beast is present, living, and listed as evidence. I did not know that law 5 minutes ago. Maelin did. She had memorized the code because poor people in noble systems memorize rules the way drowning people memorize the location of air. Kaivar's eyes flicked toward Elder Voss. There it was. The first tiny crack. They had staged a public humiliation, but they had kept the griffin present because they wanted everyone to see how defective it was. They wanted spectacle. Spectacle has procedures. The royal observer seated at the far end of the platform raised her hand. She wore a white mantle with 7 embroidered feathers. Lady Seraphine Orr, Deputy Registrar of the Royal Beast Registry. Not clan. Crown. I will allow it, she said. 1 examination, no command binding. No weapon, 3 minutes. Kaivar's jaw tightened. I bowed, because this body remembered how. Thank you, Deputy Registrar. Then I walked toward the griffin that everyone else had already thrown away. The creature hissed as I approached. Its wings flared, but not evenly. Left wing stronger, right wing stiff near the second joint. The bronze collar sparked once. I stopped 7 paces away and lowered my gaze. In this world, beast tamers built aura through dominance. Noble handlers forced mana pressure outward until beasts submitted. Rare bloodlines were prized because they supposedly responded to noble aura faster. Every stable manual Maelin had read worshipped purity, color, crest shape, and lineage length. Nobody cared about coefficient of inbreeding. Nobody cared about immune diversity. Nobody cared that breeding cousins to cousins for 3 generations might produce beautiful feathers and collapsing lungs. I lifted the bone whistle. Kaivar laughed from the platform. That thing, Orvin's old toy. I ignored him. I blew. To the crowd, it must have sounded weak, barely a breath. To me, the Griffin's response rang through my bones. Heat stress, poor mineral balance, mana pressure pooling along the sternum, commandrune irritation, fear, yes, but not aggression, not failure, not rot. I took one step closer. The Griffin's amber eyes locked on mine. I know, I whispered. They called you defective because you did not look expensive. Its feathers flattened. Behind me, someone scoffed. I crouched and dragged 4 lines in the sand with my bleeding hand, not because the blood mattered magically. I just did not have a pencil, and old habits are hard to kill. 4 founding lines, I said loudly enough for the speaking crystal to catch. Golden Crown, High Storm, Talonmere, Sunspine. The clan claims this ash feather is defective because its coat lacks gold dominance, its crest is narrow, and its storm response is delayed. Kaivar stood. That is public record. Yes, I said, that is the problem. Then I drew 2 pairs of marks beneath the lines. Maelin's memories gave me the pedigrees. My previous life gave me the diagnosis. This Griffin is not a failed pure blood, I said. It is the first stable outcross in 3 generations. The laughter stopped. I pointed at the Griffin's chest. Its breathing is not weak, it is compensating. Its storm lung trait is dormant because you have been feeding it for feather gloss instead of lung development. Too much sunseed oil, not enough ironroot ash, not enough altitude conditioning, and that collar is disrupting its resonance cycle. Elder Voss slammed his hand on the dais. Nonsense. Kaivar's face had gone very still. Good. He knew. Maybe not the biology, but he knew the records were dirty. I turned toward Lady Seraphine. Deputy Registrar, may I ask when the royal appraisal is scheduled? Her eyes narrowed with interest. 3 days from now. 3 days. Perfectly inconvenient. I looked back at Kaivar. Then you still have time to prove I'm wrong. A ripple moved through the nobles. Kaivar smiled again, but this time it had teeth in it. And how would you propose that? Give me 72 hours with the ash feather Griffin. No command collar. Standard handler oversight. If it fails the Stormflight trial, revoke my license in front of the same crowd. And if it passes, Lady Seraphine asked. Kaivar's gaze cut toward her. I said, then the registry audits every Golden Talon breeding record for the last 12 years. That was the moment the arena stopped being funny. Kaivar stared down at me. I could almost see the calculation behind his eyes. I was exhausted, injured, disgraced. No noble blood, no sponsor, no beast-taming aura worth mentioning. The ash feather Griffin had failed 3 controlled trials. There were 200 witnesses who had already laughed at us both. He thought I had just given him a cleaner way to destroy me. He spread his hands. Granted, he said, let the disgraced handler have her ugly bird. The nobles laughed again, because nobles rarely recognize the sound of a trap closing when it is politely worded. I looked at the Griffin. The Griffin looked at me. And for the first time since waking up in another woman's ruined life, I felt my fear settle into something useful. Fine, I thought. They wanted purity. I was going to show them what collapse looked like. The Ashfeather Griffin's name was Rook. Not officially, of course. Officially, it was Golden Talon Experimental Hatchling 17B, which told me everything I needed to know about the emotional intelligence of the breeding department. Nessa whispered the real name as we led him from the arena to an isolation stall. Master Orvin called him Rook, she said, walking beside me with a bucket of clean water hugged to her chest. Because he kept stealing black stones from the drainage path. Rook limped between us, wings half open, bronze command collar still sparking faintly under the supervision seal Lady Seraphine had placed on it. 3 clan guards followed, 10 paces behind. They wore polished armor and expressions that said they would rather be anywhere else, possibly inside a crocodile. "You shouldn't have challenged Lord Kaivar," Nessa whispered. "I noticed he dislikes being challenged." "He doesn't just dislike it, he collects people who embarrass him." "That sounds expensive." She gave me a startled look. I probably should have acted more like the Maelin she knew, but there was only so much personality, continuity, a person could manage after transmigrating into an execution hearing. We reached the lower stables, where the air smelled of hay, hot feathers, mineral paste, and old fear. Golden cages lined the east wall. Inside them, pureblood griffins stood on carved perches, magnificent and wrong. They were beautiful, that was the tragedy. Gold feather mantles, bright crests, identical black beaks, identical white streaks near the eyes, identical tail plumes shaped like flame tips. Too identical. In my old world, when endangered animal breeding went bad, it did not always look bad at first. It looked clean, predictable, marketable. Same color, same face, same weakness hiding under the shine. Everyone loved consistency until the immune system collapsed. One pureblood griffin coughed as we passed. Not a normal cough. Dry click, shallow recoil, right side tremor. I stopped. The guard behind me snapped, "Keep moving." I did, but I counted. 8 griffins in the lower stable. 5 with slight chest fluttering. 2 with feather stress lines. 1 with clouded inner eyelids. Kaivar was not just hiding one mistake. He was standing on top of a breeding program that had already started to rot. Rook's stall was at the far end, away from the polished viewing halls. No gold bars, no carved perch, just thick wooden rails, straw, a cracked water basin, and a ventilation window facing the mountain ridge. "Of course," I muttered. "You put the only one who needs altitude airflow in the lowest stall." Nessa blinked. "What?" "Nothing. Actually not nothing. Do we have ironroot ash?" She hesitated. "For warhorses, yes." "Blue kelp." "In the cooling room." "Goat liver." Her eyes widened. "You want to feed him meat." "He is half eagle and half lion. The clan says royal griffins should eat pearl-grain mash for feather purity." I stared at her. She winced. "I know, Master Orvin hated it too." That name softened something in Maelin's borrowed chest. The original Maelin had loved Orvin like a father. He had taken in a debt-marked stable girl, taught her to read breeding seals, and warned her never to trust a pedigree that looked too perfect. Then he died after a sudden fever. Officially. In Maelin's memories, he had been investigating the hatchling records before he collapsed. I filed that away, not proof, not yet, but a direction. Nessa shifted closer and lowered her voice. "Maelin, are you really Maelin?" Every muscle in my body tightened. She looked terrified of the question, but she asked it anyway. I considered lying. Then Rook exhaled behind me, a long, rattling breath that translated through the whistle at my belt as exhaustion, pain, and cautious recognition. I said, "I am Maelin Cor, but I woke up with more memories than I had yesterday." Nessa swallowed, like possession. More like inheritance from somewhere very far away. It was not a good explanation. It was the safest true one. Her fingers tightened around the bucket handle. "Are you going to hurt him?" "No." "Are you going to hurt Lord Kaivar?" I looked through the stall bars at the gold cages. "No," I said. "I'm going to let his records do that." Nessa stared for 1 second, then nodded like that answer made sense to the exact wounded part of her that had watched noble handlers lie for years. My first milestone came 2 hours later. It was not dramatic. No lightning. No sudden aura explosion. No mystical voice congratulating me for basic husbandry. It was a meal. I mixed pearl grain with goat liver, ironroot ash, crushed bone salt, and 3 drops of bitter skyvane oil. Nessa watched like I was preparing treason in a bucket. Too much oil stresses feather production, I explained. Too little mineral support weakens oxygen transport. Stormlung needs pressure training, but his body can't adapt if he's underfed and inflamed. She frowned. You speak like a healer. I used to speak like this to committees. Be grateful. They asked more annoying questions. Rook refused the first bowl. That was fair. If someone had fed me noble brand glitter porridge for months, I would distrust buckets too. I sat outside the stall and did not reach for him. That mattered. This world's beast tamers constantly pushed aura into animals. Command, suppress, demand, bind. Then they acted shocked when the animals either broke or bit them. I took the whistle from my belt and blew a note so soft even Nessa barely heard it. Rook's head lifted. The sound came back to me as 3 overlapping patterns: hunger, suspicion, chest pressure. Not words. Never words. I could not ask him questions. I could not command him. The whistle only worked when I had correctly identified a condition. If I guessed wrong, it stayed silent except for a useless breathy squeak. It was not a cheat. It was a diagnostic confirmation tool with attitude. I adjusted the bowl. Moved it 2 feet left, out of the direct line of the doorway. Rook watched. I shifted my body sideways, less frontal. His crest lowered. I pushed the bowl with a wooden rake and looked away. 3 minutes passed. Then Rook ate. Nessa covered her mouth with both hands. My chest warmed. Not emotionally. Well, not only emotionally. A thread of aura gathered under my ribs. Thin, precise, almost surgical. Maelin's body had weak beast-taming aura because she had always tried to copy dominance techniques that did not suit her. But when Rook accepted care based on a correct diagnosis, my aura responded differently. It did not grow bigger. It grew sharper. Bloodline resonance through understanding. That was milestone 1. Not power over the beast. Accuracy with the beast. By sunset, Kaivar sent his first messenger. A senior handler named Pell marched in with a scroll, 2 witnesses, and the expression of a man who had practiced being unpleasant in a mirror. Lord Kaivar reminds you that the ash feather remains Golden Talon property, Pell said. You may not alter its diet, stall, training pattern, grooming schedule, or resonance protocol without senior approval. I looked at the half-empty feeding bowl. Then at the scroll. Wonderful, I said. Put that in writing. Pell paused. People like Pell love giving orders until you ask them to document them. He unrolled the scroll. It is in writing. Good. Add that Lord Kaivar specifically forbids nutrition changes during a medically observed condition review, despite visible respiratory distress. His face tightened. That is not what I said. It is what the instruction means. You are being difficult. No, I'm being literate. Nessa made a small, choking sound behind me. Pell leaned closer. You have 72 hours before you lose everything. I would spend less of it making enemies. I gave him the warning because the story would be less satisfying if I did not. You may want to be careful what you sign on behalf of Lord Kaivar, I said. The registry observer placed this review under royal evidence rules. Interfering with care can become interference with evidence. Pell's mouth twisted. Still pretending you understand law now. No, I said. I understand systems. Law is just another system people get arrogant around. He did not add the diet restriction. He did, however, report my tone. By midnight, Elder Voss arrived personally. He brought 3 guards and the smell of expensive incense. I was sitting outside Rook's stall with old breeding ledgers spread across my lap. Nessa had smuggled them from Master Orvin's sealed cabinet after I asked whether he kept private notes. She had looked guilty for 7 seconds before deciding guilt was less important than survival. The ledgers were not complete, but they were enough. Golden Talon had 12 active breeding griffins. Their public records listed 4 founding lines. Their private pairing notes showed repeated back-crossing through the same sire line 6 times in 8 years. 6 times. For animals with magical respiratory traits tied to mana channels. Even without a calculator, that made my eye twitch. Elder Voss stopped at the stall door. Handler Cor. Elder Voss. You are confused. I've been many things today. Confused was mostly this morning. His nostrils flared. Lord Kaivar has shown mercy by allowing this farce to continue until appraisal. Do not mistake procedure for safety. I turned a page. Is that a threat or a medical instruction? The guards exchanged glances. Voss smiled thinly. You were never suited to this clan. Orvin filled your head with sentimental nonsense. Beasts are assets. Bloodlines are property. Nobles understand stewardship. Orphans understand feeding schedules. There it was. The entire philosophy of collapse in 4 sentences. I looked up at him. Do you know what happens when you keep breeding for one visible trait and ignore everything else? I do not require a stable rat's lesson. Then I'll save it for the royal registry. His smile vanished. He stepped closer. Rook shifted behind the bars, feathers lifting. I did not move. Voss lowered his voice. Destroy those notes. No. I can still have your debt transferred to a prison mine. You can try. I can have the girl dismissed. Nessa went pale. That touched a nerve that belonged to both Maelin and me. I stood. The aura under my ribs sharpened again, not enough to threaten anyone, but enough that Rook's head lifted. The whistle at my belt warmed. Elder Voss, I said calmly, you are speaking in front of 3 guards, 1 assistant, 1 registered evidence beast, and a royal supervision seal. Are you sure you want to continue? He looked at the collar seal on Rook's neck. Lady Seraphine's white mark glowed faintly. He had forgotten it was recording. Not conversation, exactly. This world loved bureaucracy, but it was not that convenient. The seal recorded interference, aura pressure, and unauthorized handling. Threats to evidence care would not play as audio in court, but they would show stress spikes and proximity. Voss stepped back. Smart man. Corrupt but smart. You have 3 days, he said. 70 hours now, I corrected. He left. Nessa let out a breath that shook. Are you always like this now? I was worse with grant committees. I don't know what that means. It means Lord Kaivar should have fed me to something before I found paperwork. That got the tiniest laugh out of her. It was not much. But in that cold stable, with a sick griffin, a fraudulent bloodline, and 70 hours before public appraisal, it felt like the first honest sound in the whole clan. The second milestone happened on the mountain stairs. Rook hated stairs. Not in a cute way. In a whoever designed this deserves to step on a rake way. His right wing dragged when the path narrowed, and every 20 steps his chest rhythm broke into that shallow triple breath pattern. The old training manuals said failed griffins should be pushed through fear response until the storm spirit awakened. That was the kind of sentence written by someone who had never been responsible for long-term survival. Fear can produce a burst. It cannot build capacity. So I started smaller. At dawn, 26 hours after the arena, Nessa and I led Rook to the lower ridge behind the stables. Not the flight platform, not the trial cliff, just a wind path where mountain air moved in steady pulses through black pine trees. The guards followed. Pell followed too, because Kaivar apparently wanted a witness in case I accidentally healed the evidence. You're wasting time, Pell said. Stormflight trial requires a launch from the royal cliff, 700 feet minimum drop, 3 lightning rings, and 1 controlled landing. I know. This thing can barely climb. I also know that. Rook snapped his beak at him. Pell stepped back. I did not smile, much. I tied a soft lead around Rook's neck beneath the bronze collar, making sure it did not press on the throat. Then I marked 10 paces in the dirt. We walk there, I told Nessa. We stop, he breathes, we return. That's training, Pell said. That's baseline measurement. He snorted. A beast either has storm capacity or it doesn't. And that, I said, is why your expensive birds keep collapsing. His hand twitched toward his command baton. I looked at the royal seal on Rook's collar. He lowered his hand. Good boy. Rook walked 10 paces, stopped, breathed, walked back. We did that 12 times. On the 13th, I noticed the rhythm shift. The pause before exhale shortened. Shoulder feathers lifted evenly. I blew the whistle. A clear pattern returned. Strain, adaptation, acceptance. The aura under my ribs focused into a second thread. Nessa felt it too. She stared at me. Your resonance changed. Sharper. Cleaner, she said. Most handlers press outward like heat. Yours feels like a needle finding a knot. That was a deeply uncomfortable description. Accurate, though. By midday, I had a working model. In this world, beast-taming aura was not just charisma with sparkles. It was a feedback field between handler and beast. Dominance tamers forced the field wide. Their beasts obeyed under pressure, but the connection was blunt. My resonance grew only when I correctly identified a real need and adjusted care or training accordingly. In other words, the magic rewarded evidence-based husbandry. I could work with that. The whistle had limits. If I tried to use it on one of the pure-blood gold griffins through the cage bars, I got only weak air. No pattern. I had not examined them properly. I did not know enough. The tool refused lazy conclusions. Annoying. Ethical. Probably for the best. So I used my eyes. At lunch, Nessa brought stolen copies of feeding logs. She had access because senior handlers treated assistants like furniture, and furniture hears everything. We sat behind the hay store while Rook slept in the shade. Kaivar ordered all gold line hatchlings switched to pearl grain at 8 weeks, she said. Master Orvin argued for mixed mineral feeding until 6 months. They overruled him. How many hatchlings died? She looked down, officially. Actually, 14 in 3 years. 14. The number sat between us like a stone. Nessa, I asked carefully, why did you stay? She twisted her scarf. My little brother has moonlung. The clan healer gives him medicine as part of my wage. There was her pressure point. Systems always know where to put the knife. Kaivar knows. Everyone knows. I nodded once. Then we keep you clean. No stealing anything traceable. No direct accusations. You bring me only things your role allows you to access. But the ledgers? Already done. From now on, careful. She looked at me for a long moment. You're trying to protect me. Yes. Maelin used to protect everyone quietly, she said. Then they blamed her anyway. That landed harder than I expected. Maybe because somewhere under my thoughts, the original Maelin's fear still lived. She had not been stupid. She had not been weak. She had been isolated, overworked, and trained to believe survival depended on being useful to people who would never protect her back. I knew that feeling too. In my old life, I had once spent 8 months writing a genetic rescue plan for a nearly extinct antelope population. The board smiled, thanked me, ignored the recommendations, approved a glossy donor-friendly breeding campaign, and then acted surprised when 3 calves died from the same inherited defect I had flagged in red. Nobody fed me to arena beasts, but the principle was familiar. By the second evening, Kaivar changed tactics. He came to the ridge himself. No elder this time, no messenger, just him dressed in riding leathers with a gold-feathered griffin walking behind him like a weapon made of sunlight. The griffin was stunning. It was also wheezing. Subtly, but enough. Kaivar rested one hand on its neck. This is Auric's sovereign, grandson of High Storm Emperor, appraised at 120,000 sun crowns. Congratulations. You understand what that means. That rich people name animals like furniture. Nessa coughed into her sleeve. Kaivar's smile hardened. It means true blood declares itself. Nobility is not assembled from stable scraps and desperate theories. I glanced at Oryx Sovereign's chest. 2-beat flutter, left nostril flare, crest too rigid, overconditioned, overgroomed, underadapted. Beautiful Griffin, I said. Kaivar looked pleased despite himself. Unsuitable for storm trial under pressure, I added. His fingers tightened. Oryx Sovereign's feathers prickled. Kaivar stepped closer, lowering his voice. You are entertaining, Maelin. I almost understand why Orvin kept you around. So here is a generous offer. Withdraw your challenge. Admit grief made you unstable after your mentor's death. I will revoke your license quietly instead of publicly. Your debt will be reduced by half. The assistant keeps her position. The ugly Griffin is culled humanely. There it was. The first offer. Not because he felt mercy. Because he wanted the audit gone. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, no. His eyes went flat. Think carefully. I did. I can ruin you. You already tried. It lacked imagination. He stared at me like I had spoken an unknown language. Maybe I had. People like Kaivar rarely hear refusal without apology attached. I gave him his second warning. Do not put Oryx Sovereign in the Stormflight trial. He laughed once. You think I fear your stable superstition. I think your bloodline is carrying stacked recessive failure traits through the high storm side. I think your public success depends on grooming, controlled conditions, and command suppression. I think a live Stormring trial will expose symptoms you have been hiding in private. Kaivar leaned in. You cannot prove that. Not yet. His smile returned. Then I look forward to your embarrassment. He turned to leave. Oryx Sovereign coughed again. Rook, lying in the shade behind me, lifted his head and made a low clicking sound. Through the whistle at my belt, I heard it as recognition. Not fear. Recognition. Like one sick animal hearing another. That night, I found Master Orvin's last note. It was hidden in the spine of the oldest breeding ledger, folded so tightly the paper had nearly become cloth. Nessa cried when I opened it, because she recognized his handwriting even though the ink was faded. Most of the note was shorthand, pairing marks, dates, hatch numbers, a list of names I did not know. At the bottom, there were 3 lines. Maelin, if I fail to bring this before registry, remember, 17B is not the mistake. He is the correction. The fraud is in the purity claim. Kaivar cannot let the ash line live. My throat closed. The original Maelin had been framed because Orvin had found the same truth. Rook was not just a rejected hatchling. He was evidence. His existence proved the clan had secretly outcrossed to stabilize the bloodline while publicly selling pure-blood certificates. Then, when his markings looked common, they labeled him defective and blamed the handler. A perfect fraud needs a perfect scapegoat. I read the note 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and tucked it inside my shirt. Nessa wiped her face with her sleeve. What do we do? We make sure they attack first. She stared. What? Kaivar is arrogant, but he's not reckless enough to let an audit happen if he can prevent it. He'll try to force a failure before appraisal. How? I looked toward the upper stables. With the one thing these people always use when skill scares them. At midnight, the sabotage came. Not dramatic assassins, not poison smoke, not cloaked mages. Just Pell, 2 junior handlers, and a forged order to reinstall Rook's command collar at full pressure, for safety compliance. I was awake when they arrived. So was Lady Seraphine. That part was important. I had sent Nessa to request clarification from the deputy registrar at sunset, using the exact phrase, possible evidence interference. Bureaucrats love 3 things: seals, jurisdiction, and being asked whether someone else is trying to make them look foolish. Lady Seraphine arrived in a plain cloak and stood in the shadow of the feed room with 2 registry scribes. Pell walked right past her, opened Rook's stall, and raised the pressure key. Rook shrieked and reared back. I stepped into the lantern light. I wouldn't. Pell froze. Lady Seraphine said, "Continue, senior handler. I am curious which safety protocol requires tampering with a registered evidence beast at midnight." Pell's face emptied. The junior handlers immediately developed a strong interest in the floor. The forged order had Kaivar's seal. Not his signature, sadly. He was careful. But seals had custody chains, and royal scribes were very good at making rich people regret wax. That was hidden leverage beginning to turn. Not enough to end him. Enough to make him nervous. The next morning, Milestone 3 arrived. Rook flew. Not high, not far, not beautifully. But on the lower ridge, after 36 controlled breathing walks, 4 corrected meals, 2 rest cycles, and the removal of the bronze collar, Rook opened his ash-gray wings and launched across a 30-foot wind gap. For half a second, he dropped. Nessa gasped. My heart punched my ribs. Then his chest expanded. The air around his wings shimmered blue-white. Not lightning, not yet. Pressure. Stormlung awakening. Rook landed badly on the far side, stumbled 3 steps, and snapped his beak like he meant to sue gravity. I laughed so hard I nearly sat down. Nessa was crying again, but happily this time. The aura inside me tightened into a bright, precise knot. I felt Rook's breathing pattern before I heard it. I felt where his fear rose, where his muscles compensated, where the resonance could guide without forcing. For the first time, he stepped toward me without food. He lowered his head. I placed my hand against the feathers between his eyes. Warmth moved through my palm. Not obedience. Trust. And trust, in that world, turned out to be far stronger than command. By the morning of the royal beast appraisal, Golden Talon looked like a clan preparing for a coronation. The main arena had been polished until the white stone reflected sunlight. 7 storm rings hovered above the central flight path, each one a circle of silver runes designed to simulate high-altitude lightning currents. Royal banners hung beside clan banners, which annoyed Kaivar so visibly I considered it a gift. More than 300 people attended. Nobles, beast merchants, royal inspectors, rival clans, contract scribes, stable masters, appraisers, 2 banking officials from the Spirit Vault, at least 12 clients who had paid deposits for future Golden Talon griffins. That mattered. Fraud whispered in a stable is a problem. Fraud exposed in front of customers, regulators, and lenders is a collapse. Nessa stood beside me at the lower gate, pale but steady. She had braided Rook's feathers lightly to keep them clear of his shoulders. No decorations, no gold dye, no crest wax, just clean ash feathers, sharp eyes, and a chest that rose in a slow, even rhythm. You look calm, she whispered. I'm not. You sound calm. That is different. She nodded as if this was profound. Across the arena, Kaivar entered with Auric Sovereign. The crowd reacted exactly as expected. Gasps, applause, fans fluttering, merchants leaning forward to admire the gold mantle. Auric looked magnificent under controlled light. Every feather shone, every marking screamed expensive. Behind him came 3 more pure-blood griffins, each led by a senior handler. Sunspine Valor, Talonmere Crown, Highstorm Prince. The names were getting worse. All 4 were scheduled to demonstrate stormflight capacity before Rook. Kaivar wanted contrast. He wanted the crowd to see noble perfection first and our common ash feather failure last. That was fine. A good collapse needs a comparison group. Lady Seraphine presided from the central dais with 2 senior royal registrars. Elder Voss sat near her, sweating beneath his rings. Kaivar's father, Lord Drent, occupied the clan's seat, silver-haired and expressionless. He had not visited the stables once during the 72 hours. That told me he was either uninvolved, willfully blind, or waiting to see which way the blade fell. Possibly all 3. The appraisal began with pedigree recitation. A herald announced Auric Sovereign's ancestry, back 8 generations. 8. By the 5th generation, I was mentally circling repeated names. By the 7th, I wanted to throw something. Lady Seraphine glanced at me once. I kept my face neutral. Kaivar stepped into the arena with a performer's ease. For 140 years, Golden Talon has preserved the royal storm Griffin line without dilution. Today, we present the strength of pure blood. Applause rolled through the stands. I leaned toward Nessa. Remember that sentence. Why? Because later people will charge extra for having heard it. Auric Sovereign took the first platform. The storm rings brightened. Kaivar lifted his command hand, aura flaring gold around his fingers. It was strong. I would give him that. Blunt, arrogant, and heavy, but strong. Auric launched. For the first ring, he was breathtaking. Gold wings cut through the air. Lightning crawled along his feathers. The crowd roared. Second ring, still good. Third ring, the chest flutter began. I heard it through the whistle, even from the gate, faint but clear, because I had spent 72 hours learning the pattern in Rook and observing its broken cousin in the purebloods. Mana pressure pooling. Respiratory channel strain. Kaivar's aura pressed harder. Auric climbed into the 4th ring. His left wing faltered. The crowd's applause thinned. Kaivar smiled wider, because men like him think pressure is a solution to pressure damage. Steady, I whispered, though not to him. Auric passed the 5th ring and screamed. Not a battle cry, a pain response. The storm ring flashed red. Safety mages raised their staves. Kaivar forced more aura through the command bond. Auric's wings locked. For one terrible second, the griffin dropped. The safety net caught him in a burst of silver light before he hit the arena floor. No gore, no death, just a stunned, trembling animal tangled in royal safety magic while 300 witnesses stared. The silence was exquisite. Kaivar lowered his hand slowly. An equipment irregularity, he said. Lady Seraphine's quill moved across a report sheet. Sunspine Valor went next. He failed at the 4th ring. Talonmere Crown refused launch entirely and bit through a handler's sleeve without breaking skin, which was honestly restrained under the circumstances. Highstorm Prince completed 5 rings, then collapsed into the landing sand, breathing in shallow clicks. By the 4th failure, the crowd was no longer confused. It was calculating. Merchants whispered behind fans. Banking officials exchanged folded notes. Rival clan representatives looked like they had discovered religion. Kaivar's face had gone pale under his perfect grooming. Elder Voss kept dabbing his forehead. Lord Drent had not moved. Lady Seraphine turned toward Kaivar. Do you wish to withdraw the final demonstration? A generous offer. Also a trap. If he withdrew, he admitted enough concern to trigger a provisional review. If he continued and failed, the collapse became public. Either way, the audit door opened. Kaivar looked at me. There was hatred in his eyes now, clean and personal. Good. That meant he had stopped thinking clearly. The final demonstration is not ours, he said, loud enough for the crystal. It belongs to the disgraced handler who claimed a defective ash feather could surpass pure blood. The crowd shifted toward me. Nessa touched my sleeve. Maelin. I looked at Rook. He stood quietly at the gate, ash feathers moving in the wind. Not pretty by their standards. Not uniform, not noble. Alive in every way that mattered. I stepped into the arena. The sand remembered my blood from 3 days earlier. Or maybe I did. Rook followed without a chain. That caused the first murmur. I heard someone say, no collar. Another replied, is that legal? Lady Seraphine answered from the dais. Permitted. The beast is under voluntary handler resonance. Kaivar laughed sharply. Voluntary with that. I did not look at him. Rook and I reached the launch platform. The 7 storm rings hummed overhead. My aura gathered under my ribs, not wide, not brilliant, not noble. A thin diagnostic thread, a promise made of attention. I pressed 2 fingers to the bone whistle. This was the risk. The whistle only worked when the diagnosis was correct. If I had misread Rook, if the storm lung trait was not stable, if 3 days had not been enough, if my earth knowledge did not translate fully into magical physiology, then I was about to humiliate myself in front of everyone and probably lose the only leverage keeping me alive. So naturally, Kaivar smiled. Last chance, he called. Admit the beast is defective. I turned then. Lord Kaivar, I said, that beast was never defective, your definition was. Then I blew the whistle. The sound barely crossed the platform. Rook's response filled my entire body. Breath steady. Pressure rising. Fear present. Trust stronger. I did not command him. I exhaled with him. He launched. The first ring flashed blue. Rook's wings caught the wind awkwardly but held. His ash feathers did not shine gold. They drank the light, dull and storm-dark, and the air around his chest shimmered. Second ring. His breathing hitched. I felt the old panic rise in him, the memory of collars, pain, forced commands. I did not push. I opened my hand. His choice. For one breath, he dipped. The nobles leaned forward. Kaivar's smile returned. Then Rook spread his wings wider than I had ever seen and pulled air through the storm-lung trait like a bellows filling with thunder. The third ring turned white. The fourth sparked. The fifth roared. By the sixth ring, lightning crawled across his ash feathers and vanished into his chest without burning him. The crowd stood. I heard Nessa sob behind me. Rook entered the seventh ring. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. Then the ring burst into a halo of blue-white stormlight, and Rook came through the center with both wings steady, eyes clear, body aligned. No collapse, no panic, no command aura forcing him forward. He landed in the arena, sand 12 paces from the dais. Not perfectly. He slid, dug in his talons, and stopped with a furious shake of his feathers that sent static snapping across the ground. The royal registry, crystal above the arena, chimed once. A completed stormflight trial. Without injury. Without command collar. Without noble blood performance grooming. For 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Then Lady Seraphine stood. Record confirmed, she said. Ashfeather Griffin, registered as experimental hatchling 17B, has completed full stormflight trial under voluntary resonance. No respiratory failure detected. No command compulsion detected. Stormlung trait expression confirmed. The crowd exploded. Not cheering exactly. Worse for Kaivar. Talking. Rich people can survive boos. They cannot survive informed whispers. Kaivar strode forward. This proves nothing. A single outlier does not invalidate 140 years of breeding stewardship. I had been waiting for that. I reached into my shirt and pulled out Master Orvan's folded note. Then I took the copied ledgers from Nessa, who stepped into the arena with both hands shaking and her chin lifted. Kaivar's eyes widened. Elder Voss stood so fast his chair scraped stone. I bowed to Lady Seraphine. Deputy Registrar, I submit Handler Orvan's private breeding notes, Golden Talon internal feeding logs, and copied pairing records showing repeated close-blood breeding through the Highstorm sire line, concealed outcross attempts, false pure-blood certification, and deliberate misclassification of 17B to avoid registry disclosure. Kaivar snapped, forgery. Lady Seraphine held out one hand. A royal scribe took the papers. The white registry, crystal above the dais, brightened. It did not verify truth like magic lie detectors in cheap stories. It verified seal traces, ink age, registry number consistency, and document custody marks. Bureaucracy, but glowing. The scribe read silently for 2 minutes. 2 minutes is a long time when your entire noble business is holding its breath. Then she whispered to Lady Seraphine. Lady Seraphine looked at Kaivar. Lord Kaivar Drent, she said, Are you willing to swear under registry oath that Golden Talon has not concealed outcross breeding while selling royal pureblood certificates? There it was. The clean blade. Not my accusation. His oath. Kaivar opened his mouth. Closed it. The oath circle beneath the dais lit silver. If he swore falsely, the registry seal would mark him. If he refused, the investigation became automatic. He looked at Elder Voss. Voss looked away. Beautiful. Kaivar's voice came out low. I request counsel. Lady Seraphine nodded. Request noted. Breeding rights of Golden Talon are frozen pending full audit. All active Royal Griffin contracts are suspended. No sale, transfer, culling, or alteration of registered stock may occur without registry approval. The Spirit Vault officials stood immediately. One whispered into a communication crystal. That was the sound of money running for shelter. Lord Drent finally moved. He looked at his son, then at Elder Voss, then at Rook. His expression did not change, but his hand tightened once on the arm of his chair. Kaivar turned on me. You planned this. I looked back at him across the arena, where he had expected to watch me die socially, legally, and maybe literally. No, I said. You planned it, I just understood the breeding chart. Consequences in noble systems do not arrive like thunder. They arrive like stamped documents. The first document froze Golden Talon's breeding rights for 90 days. The second suspended 6 pending Griffin sales worth 400,000 sun crowns. The third ordered medical examinations of all 12 active breeding griffins. The fourth summoned Kaivar, Elder Voss, and 3 senior handlers to a registry tribunal. The fifth transferred temporary custody of Rook to me. That one made Kaivar throw a wine cup. Not at me. He still had enough survival instinct to avoid assaulting a protected witness in front of royal scribes. Barely. The appraisal ended in chaos dressed as procedure. Nobles who had laughed at me in the arena now avoided eye contact with impressive commitment. 2 merchants tried to claim they had always been concerned about bloodline diversity. One baroness asked if ash feathers might become fashionable now, which nearly made me walk into a pillar. Nessa stayed close to Rook, one hand on his shoulder feathers, like she expected someone to snatch him. No one did. The registry seal on his new custody band was bright white. Even arrogant people hesitate before stealing crown evidence. Lady Seraphine found me outside the lower stable after sunset. I was sitting on an overturned bucket because my body had finally remembered it had been awake, injured, stressed, and running on spite for 3 days. She stood beside Rook's stall, hands folded behind her back. You understand this is not over, she said. I assumed rich fraud has paperwork roots. Her mouth twitched. Deep ones. Golden Talon supplies griffins to 3 royal courier routes, 2 border patrol divisions, and 14 noble houses. If the bloodline is compromised, the court will not be gentle. Good. Good for reform, dangerous for witnesses. I looked at Nessa, who was pretending not to listen while brushing Rook. Lady Seraphine followed my gaze. The assistant will be offered registry protection if she provides testimony. Nessa has a brother who needs medicine. I know. The registry healer has already been informed. Nessa froze. I closed my eyes for 1 second. That was when I decided Lady Seraphine might be terrifying in the useful way. She turned back to me. As for you, Maelin Cor, your handler license is reinstated provisionally. Your debt to Golden Talon is under review, since coerced debt tied to fraudulent labor conditions may be void. Maybe. Bureaucrats never say, will, when they can make you sweat. Thank you, I said. Do not thank me yet. You also created a legal question the registry has not faced in 42 years. Only one. Ownership of a newly confirmed, stable trait line produced under fraudulent records. There it was. Rook. If his storm-lung trait was stable and tied to outcross diversity, he was not just a griffin. He was the future of a very expensive breeding program. The clan would fight to keep him. The crown would want control. Rival clans would circle. Merchants would invent opinions. "What happens to him?" I asked. "For now, nothing without your consent." Rook clicked softly behind the bars. The whistle translated a steady pattern. Tired, wary listening. Lady Seraphine studied me. "He responds to you unusually well." "I don't dominate him." I noticed. "Does that bother the registry?" "It interests us." That was not better. She handed me a sealed paper. "Tribunal in 7 days. You will testify, bring the whistle." My hand closed over the bone whistle at my belt. "Why?" "Because Master Orvin registered it as a diagnostic relic 21 years ago. The clan dismissed it as non-functional after his death. If it works for you, the tribunal will want to know why." Of course they would. No miracle stays private after public success. After she left, Nessa came to sit beside me on the floor. "Registry healer," she said softly. "For my brother." "Yes." "I don't know how to repay you." "You helped save Rook." "You saved us first." That was not true, not entirely. I had saved myself first. I wanted to be honest about that. But Maelin's memories of Nessa bringing water to a condemned cell sat inside me like a small lamp. So I said, "Then we'll call it even." The next 7 days were a parade of panic. Kaivar sent offers. The first came through Pell, who looked like he had aged 6 years since midnight sabotage. "Lord Kaivar offers 10,000 sun crowns for your silence regarding personal accusations, not yet proven." "No." 20,000. "No." "A senior handler position after the inquiry closes." "No." Pell's face pinched. "What do you want?" I looked up from Rook's new feeding plan. Clean records, independent veterinary review, Nessa's brother treated, Orvin's name restored, my debt voided, Rook protected, and Kaivar under oath. Pell stared. "So, not money." "Money too, eventually. I'm principled, not decorative." The second offer came from Elder Voss. He did not come personally, wise. His letter suggested that if I misremembered certain ledger details, he could ensure I received a private breeding license for a small ash feather line under Golden Talon sponsorship. I sent the letter to Lady Seraphine. The third offer came from Lord Drent himself. That surprised me. He summoned me to the old viewing hall, where portraits of previous clan heads watched from the walls with the same expression. Rich, stern, and probably genetically repetitive. Lord Drent stood by the window. "You have damaged my house," he said. "Your house damaged itself." He looked at me then. His eyes were pale gray, not angry, colder than that. "My son is reckless, Voss is greedy, but the clan employs 800 people across 5 provinces." There it was, the reasonable argument, the one corrupt systems use when they realize the shield is cracking. Think of the innocent workers. And I did. I thought of Nessa, her brother, the junior handlers, the stable cleaners, the courier riders depending on safe griffins, the future buyers who might lose deposits, the animals who had no voice in any of this. "I am thinking of them," I said. "That's why I'm testifying." His mouth tightened. He offered me reinstatement, full license, debt cancellation, a private apology, a controlled reform committee chaired by him. Rook would remain at Golden Talon, but I could supervise his care. It was the best offer yet. It was also a cage with velvet bars. "No," I said. His eyes narrowed. "You would rather let the registry tear the clan apart." "I would rather the people who lied stop, deciding what truth costs." For the first time, Lord Drent looked tired. "Kaivar was always vain," he said quietly, "but he loved the griffins once." I believed that. That was the uncomfortable part. Villains are easier when they hate what they destroy. Kaivar probably did love griffins in the way collectors love rare things, in the way owners love assets, in the way people love a reflection of themselves. He had wanted Golden Talon to look perfect. So he bred toward perfection until the living creatures under his care could not breathe. I don't need him to be a monster, I said. I need him to be accountable. Lord Drent looked back out the window. You sound like Orvin. Good. That ended the meeting. The tribunal took place in the Royal Beast Registry Hall, a circular chamber built around an enormous suspended crystal feather. Every oath spoken beneath it became part of the registry archive. Every seal submitted there could be traced. Every breeding license in the kingdom was legally born in that room. Kaivar arrived in black and gold. No smirk this time. Elder Voss arrived with counsel. Pell arrived sweating. Nessa arrived beside me in a clean handler's coat, her green scarf pinned straight, her hands shaking only a little. Rook waited in the courtyard under guard, because apparently bringing a griffin into a legal chamber required 3 forms and a reinforced ceiling. The tribunal lasted 6 hours. No dramatic yelling. No sword duel. Just records. And records are merciless when the people reading them know where to look. The registry auditors found repeated pairing loops, false purity declarations, hatchling mortality hidden under transfer loss, medical symptoms mislabeled as training failures, outcross attempts concealed under experimental codes, payments from private buyers routed through 2 shell stables, Orvin's objections removed from official minutes. Then they played the supervision seal from the Midnight Collar incident. Not words, just proximity, unauthorized aura activation, and stress spike mapping. Pell folded almost immediately. He claimed he was following Elder Voss's instruction. Elder Voss claimed Kaivar proved all breeding decisions. Kaivar claimed tradition justified line preservation. That was a poor choice. Lady Seraphine asked him one question. Did you sell griffins as undiluted royal pureblood stock, while knowingly concealing outcross ancestry and inherited mana failure? Kaivar's counsel whispered urgently. The oath circle lit. Kaivar stood inside it, jaw clenched. He could refuse. He could confess. He could lie and be marked. For 10 seconds, he looked at me like this was still somehow my fault. Then he said, I acted to preserve the clan's position. The crystal feather above us darkened. Not black. Gray. A partial admission under oath. The chamber erupted in controlled bureaucratic alarm. I had never loved paperwork more. The final ruling came down 11 days after I first woke in the arena. Golden Talon lost royal breeding privileges for 5 years. Not 90 days. 5 years. Their existing griffins were placed under medical supervision. Their pending contracts were canceled or renegotiated under Crown oversight. Buyers received restitution from frozen clan accounts. The Spirit Vault called in 2 major loans. Elder Voss lost his registry credentials and was barred from beast commerce for life. Pell was suspended for 1 year, which I thought was light, but Nessa reminded me he had testified fully after folding like wet paper. Kaivar lost the most. His heir status was suspended pending royal review. His personal breeding license was revoked permanently. He was fined 70,000 sun crowns, ordered to repay fraudulent certification fees, and forbidden from holding direct authority over registered magical beasts. He was not imprisoned. Some people watching wanted that. I did not. I wanted him removed from the system he abused. I wanted the animals safe. I wanted the people he threatened protected. I wanted his reputation to meet the truth in daylight. That happened. The day after the ruling, he came to the registry courtyard where Rook was learning to tolerate reporters. Yes, reporters. Apparently magical newspapers love 3 things: noble scandal, rare beasts, and orphans winning legal custody. I hated all 3 as a combination, but Nessa said public attention made us safer. Kaivar looked different without the crowd behind him. Still beautiful, still expensive, but smaller somehow, like the heir had stopped agreeing with him. "You got what you wanted," he said. I was checking Rook's wing extension. "Not yet. What else could you possibly take?" I looked at him then. "That's your problem. You still think accountability is something I took from you." His mouth tightened. Rook shifted behind me, but I touched his shoulder and he settled. Kaivar watched that simple movement with an expression I could not read. "He never responded like that for me," he said. "No. I had the strongest aura in the clan." "I know. Then why?" I considered giving him a cruel answer. He deserved several. Instead, I gave him the useful one, because the story was never really about humiliating him. It was about consequences. "Because you kept asking beasts to prove your bloodline was strong," I said. "I asked what they needed to survive." For a second, something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe. Or just the pain of finally understanding the shape of what he had ruined. He left without another word. 3 weeks later, the court granted me legal custodianship of Rook and provisional stewardship of the Ash Stormlung line. Not ownership in the old clan sense. Stewardship. The registry created the category because Lady Seraphine enjoyed making history when it came with tidy forms. My debt to Golden Talon was voided. Nessa received protected witness compensation and a registry stable position with medical support for her brother. When she got the letter, she read it 9 times and then cried into Rook's neck. Rook tolerated it with noble patience for 6 seconds before stealing her scarf. Master Orvan's name was restored to the registry rolls. His final report was archived under confirmed whistleblower evidence. The bone whistle was officially classified as a limited diagnostic relic responsive to pattern-based resonance cognition, which was royal language for, "We do not know why Maelin can use this thing, but it works, and we are writing that down carefully." As for me, I did not join another noble clan. I had received 4 offers. 1 from a rival house, 2 from merchant stables, and 1 from the Royal Courier Service. All generous, all full of words like exclusive, discretion, and strategic partnership, which are usually just fancy rugs placed over traps. So I started smaller. A registry-backed rehabilitation stable on the East Ridge, 6 miles from the capital, with 12 stalls, 2 wind paths, 1 mineral kitchen, and exactly 0 gold purity banners. We took in beasts labeled defective. Not all of them were secretly legendary. That would be ridiculous. Some were just poorly trained. Some were anxious. Some were genuinely unsuited for the jobs nobles wanted from them. 1 moondeer had a hoof imbalance. 1 courier wyvern had a dietary intolerance. 1 storm hawk had been punished for refusing flight during pressure headaches. 3 griffin chicks from Golden Talon needed careful monitoring because inherited problems do not disappear just because the villain gets fined. Progress was slow. Good work usually is. My beast-taming aura never became the largest in the room. I did not shatter mountains. I did not summon divine beasts with 1 glance. I did not become queen of griffins, despite what 1 newspaper implied under a truly embarrassing illustration. My power grew in milestones that would bore a bad storyteller. First, I learned to hear stress patterns. Then I learned to match care to bloodline needs. Then I learned to build resonance without force. Then I trained other handlers to observe before commanding. 6 months after the tribunal, Rook completed a courier endurance flight through a real mountain storm. Not a trial ring, not a controlled arena, real wind, real lightning, real risk. He landed soaked, furious, healthy, and very proud of himself. The registry certified the Ash Stormlung line as stable, not because it was pure, but because it was diverse, documented, and carefully managed. That word spread faster than scandal. Diverse. For nobles, it tasted like defeat. For handlers, it sounded like permission. A year after I woke in the arena, Golden Talon sold half its lower estate to pay restitution. Lord Drent retired from public breeding oversight. Kaivar vanished to a remote administrative post managing non-magical horse records, which felt almost poetic without being cruel. Elder Voss tried to open a private consulting house and failed because every client asked whether his advice came with a royal audit. Nessa became my first senior handler. Her brother recovered enough to visit the Ridge every week. He was a thin boy with solemn eyes and no fear whatsoever, which meant Rook adored him immediately and pretended not to. Sometimes, late at night, I still thought about my old world. I wondered what happened to my lab reports, whether anyone found me slumped over my desk, whether the antelope breeding plan was finally approved after I was gone, whether another version of me existed somewhere, still arguing with committees under fluorescent lights. I missed coffee. I missed indoor plumbing that did not involve heating rooms. I did not miss being ignored by powerful people who treated living creatures like branding opportunities. That part, apparently, existed in every world. But this time, I had a whistle, a griffin, a loyal friend, and a legal system that could be pushed into doing the right thing if you brought enough evidence and made the right people uncomfortable. People still ask whether I got revenge. I understand why. The nobles came to watch a disgraced handler get destroyed. Instead, they watched a transmigrated geneticist end an entire fraudulent bloodline business with one ugly griffin and a stack of records. That sounds like revenge. But to me, revenge would have been making Kaivar suffer because I suffered. What I wanted was simpler. I wanted the truth to become more expensive than the lie. I wanted the beasts to breathe. I wanted Maelin Cor's name cleared in the world that had tried to erase her. And I wanted every noble who laughed from those stands to remember one thing whenever they looked at a perfect golden pedigree. I did not wake up powerful. I woke up informed, and in the end, that was the one bloodline they could not control.